Anna Tierney is a classically trained actor who has been supported through many awards and the support of actors including Jeremy Irons, Ian McKellen, and Ian McShane. And her film and television credits include the animated series Summer Lane Drive, the feature PSYCHO GOREMAN that premiered at South by Southwest, and the limited Channel 4 series Deceit. But what could be her biggest role to date? Anna Tierney plays Clara Morrow in the Amazon Prime smash hit series Three Pines, along with a stellar cast. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the wonderfully talented Anna Tierney to the show. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much. What a lovely welcome. Wow. I feel like you talked me up there. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Well, how has the response been to the smash hit series Three Pines?
It's been really incredible. It was #1 in nearly every territory that it was aired in. We've had amazing response from fans of the book series and from people who are completely new to the show. And yeah, friends and family are loving it. And that's always a great barometer of if something is really, really good. You know, if your mum and your family, they love it, then that's always the best.
That's it. I've seen all 8 episodes, so I know how it begins, I know how it ends, but how did you land the role as Clara Morrow?
Yeah, well, that's a interesting story. I was actually filming another show prior to this one called Deceit, which was for Channel 4, and it's on Netflix now, I think, and maybe HBO Max as well. And I was filming that with the same creator and writer, Emilia De Girolamo of Three Pines. And after that show had finished filming, she reached out to me and told me about this project that was filming in Canada, that she was writing it, and she knew that I was based between Toronto and London. And so she told me about the book series. She told me, when it was likely going to be filming. And then I kind of went from there. So that was the initial kind of gift that was sort of landed on my lap, to know in advance that this role or this job would be coming potentially, this show. And so I immersed myself in the books. I read a ton of the novels, and I didn't really know which role I would be reading for initially. And I immediately felt this connection to Clara, reading the books. And then when the audition came, I felt like she was really in my bones. And so it was a great audition experience. Usually, you get your sides a few days before you're asked to tape, and it's a very quick turnaround. But in this case, I had all these months to kind of immerse myself in the stories. And so I was very fortunate in that way. And it all worked out in the end.
Well, your journey to Three Pines is a very interesting one, and it all started with your own true love story. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So about 8 years ago, I was doing a show in Toronto, and I was here for 7 weeks doing a play at the Royal Alex. And in the last week, I met my current partner, who is a musician, and we lived in London for some time. We lived on a narrowboat in London and lived a life there. And then we came to Toronto, which is where we are now. And yeah, full circle, did a show in Toronto, and then we went back to the UK and worked with a creator from the UK who then happened to be writing something in in Canada, sorry. And so it was this beautiful kind of full circle that wouldn't have happened unless I was, living here and immersed in life here as well as back in London. And yeah, I feel really fortunate to be part of a Canadian story and a Canadian kind of book series and everything that comes with it.
Well, I heard your role in Three Pines has become a family affair. How so?
Oh, yes. Well, I live in a family of artists. So my mother is an artist, and she works with a lot of textiles. And so she was crocheting jewelry for some years. And because the character I was playing is very earthy and natural, it didn't feel right to wear a lot of metal as the character. So I was actually wearing a lot of her crocheted jewelry, which you'll see scattered throughout the episodes. And my sister is a jeweler, more of a silversmith, and I got to wear her jewelry for the premiere of Three Pines. And then, well, my partner, who's a musician, actually provided music for the show. So in episode 3, he gave the permission for them to use the song Northern Lights, and it's one of the most beautiful songs you'll ever hear, and it was perfect for the show. And yeah, so we all got to get in on it, which was amazing.
So, have you become very good friends with the rest of the cast? And, how is the synergy there?
Yeah, the cast were incredible. I think we all really felt how special the project was and how lucky we were to be a part of it. And I think having someone like Alfred Molina as the number one on set, he was so generous and kind and funny, and he really set the tone for everyone to just be themselves and be comfortable and have a good time and do their best work. So I think when you have someone like that leading the team, it really allows everyone to connect. And we very much did, and we all still see each other and get together when we can, and it's very special.
Well, what is one of the greatest things that you've learned from being around Alfred Molina?
He is someone who he can be in his own moment. He can be kind of lifting people's spirits on set, and then when it comes to action, he can just go straight in. And it's like, wow, he doesn't spend, minutes really kind of like brooding over what he's going to do. He clearly, because he's an experienced actor and has been doing it for some years, he knows how to get his way into his character. And that was something I really noticed watching him on set. And that's something that, I'd like to try and learn how to do that, find my little ways in, so that I can kind of relax and not kind of stay in it too much in the in-between time.
Even from the very first episode, he really set the tone. And, I have had the pleasure of talking with Sarah Booth, who plays Agent Nicole in Three Pines. And it just seems that Alfred set the tone, his character set the tone throughout the whole series. And as much as I'm a huge fan of whodunits, I love crime dramas where viewers like me get to sit there and try to figure it out, but it's so well written, you cannot put your finger on the person who did it, which I think is just brilliant writing, brilliant filming. And, but yeah, he set the tone immediately, and you can see that throughout the whole series. Is that what you get from Alfred?
Absolutely. He's playing one of those roles that I think usually in a detective show, and he's talked about this himself, the detective is usually kind of brooding and often angry, and there's a lot of kind of pent up feelings, and it's usually a very different tone. But with Alfred's character, Inspector Gamache, he really is someone who leads from empathy and intuition and tries to see the good in people. And I think that's a really unusual quality for the lead inspector to have, that he really leads from this good place, even though you see that he has the light and the dark within him and that he has his own struggles. But he's a really good person and is trying to find that also in everyone else. So I think that makes it a really unique show, and also very comforting. I love crime shows and I love them being really, really dark, but I also think there's something very, very special to be found in a crime series that tries to really seek the light as well.
Yeah. Now, what about you? Okay, so you're playing Clara Morrow, and then Julian Bailey's playing Peter Morrow. How do those two characters uh, fit within Three Pines? What is the premises behind the character development there?
Yeah. So they're both artists, and I would say they're both kind of two sides of a coin in a way. Clara really leads from empathy and intuition, similar to Gamache in a way, and that's how they have a kind of connection. They seem to see things in others that they maybe don't see in themselves. And Peter, who Julian plays, is much darker and tends to lead from a place of jealousy and has a very troubled childhood with his family, which we see in episodes 5 and 6, all the kind of inner demons that he's had to battle with. And that's where the kind of friction between those two comes. And so right now, Clara is perhaps living in more kind of self-doubt and not really having enough strength to assert herself as an artist and the artist that she is and can be. And I think as the show grows, and if we go to a season 2, we're really going to see Clara's strength grow. And that's something that I'm excited to see, and within their dynamic as well as a couple.
Yeah, and what I found interesting about your character, especially in the first episode, and that tone was set from the first episode on, that when Inspector Gamache literally is standing in front of all of the characters and he says something to them, literally everybody looked guilty, which I thought was very interesting. Like either guilt, scared, like, oh no, they're going to pin it on me, but I'm innocent. How would I prove that? And you instantly see the cast of characters, but then you saw them have the same feeling, but then there was a difference about each and every character that we see just come out throughout the 8 episodes. And again, it's brilliant writing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We have to really believe that any of them could have done it. And so much of that is done with those looks, really not even with words. And yeah, you can tell a lot of story with just physical body language and the eyes. And everyone had to, have some kind of secret that could potentially mean that they'd be guilty in some way. And our director for episodes 1 and 2 and 7 and 8, Sam Donovan, he was really big on that, making sure that we had a secret, that we knew what that secret was so that it could be bubbling behind the surface.
And I saw that, especially with your character. I saw a strength there. I saw a fragileness there. But yeah, for you, there was definitely a lot of acting coming from the eyes, the facial expressions, and that just comes with experience. But you definitely have it. But I know one thing. You are British, but you speak fluent German. How in the world did you learn to speak Canadian for your own role, but not get caught up in the Canadian stereotypes that many Americans actually believe?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Canadians kind of get picked on a little bit. There's this a stereotype that they're always saying a and about and sorry, and they, on the whole, they really don't talk like that. At least my experience as someone who's spent a lot of time in Toronto, I think the accents are very similar to a kind of general American accent. And then we get into, I don't believe there is a general accent, even though that's kind of what you get in a lot of mainstream TV. And so for finding Clara's voice, I really tried to think about where her energy sits. She's maybe a little bit more shy or vulnerable or precious in certain ways. So maybe her voice kind of lives more up in her head and in her kind of chest here, and maybe we'll see that change as the series goes on, but she's definitely much more timid. And so that's kind of how I approach the accent, and listening to everyone who's around me and just living in Canada, I think has been the biggest help in terms of developing an accent. But yeah, I feel really privileged to be able to play someone with a more authentic Canadian accent, whatever that means.
Well, how would you compare your role in Three Pines with the experience of Three Pines compared to, acting in Psycho Gorman or acting in Deceit, for example?
Yeah, well, Deceit was something that was it was a story that was based actually on a real life murder and multiple murders that happened in the late 80s, and basing something on real life and found footage, you're really trying to do justice to a person that was once on this planet and then was taken from this world before their time. And so you're really trying to treat it with as much care and respect as possible, and tell that story. With something like Three Pines, you have a really specific tone that I think is guided by the director and the writing. So they talked a lot about Fargo being a kind of visual inspiration, and Twin Peaks in a way. There would be a little bit of kookiness of that kind of style. And then I think you have all the source material from the novels. And for me, they were really informative, although the adaptation for screen goes in other places and is its own thing. I really was able to draw a lot from the novels and the kind of tone that the novels set by Louise Penny. And I think you're paying attention to the tone in the script, in the novels, and then it's found its own unique voice as well, I think, which is really special. So it seems to straddle a few different genres, which is really wonderful. And I don't think I've seen anything that's quite like it. And that for me is a sign that it's found its own voice and is, hopefully going to keep developing that as the show progresses.
I completely agree. And you hit the nail on the head here, because when I saw the first episode, Fargo came to mind, and then Twin Peaks came to mind. And here is Three Pines literally taking the elements, like you said, the elements of each one and meshing them together. But out of the three, I like Three Pines better, because there's just something where I like the tone and the progression of this 8-episode series of Three Pines, because for the viewer, they can literally follow along. Things aren't rushed. Nothing is misplaced. There are 2 stories going on from episode 1 to episode 8, but then we see 4 shorter stories kind of sitting on top with a deeper foundation, which I think, again, goes back to brilliant writing, but it also comes back to putting all of that together with brilliant filmmaking, and Three Pines is definitely that kind of series. I've heard through the grapevine that there's a lot of talk about Three Pines and that we may see a season 2.
Yes, we're really hoping. We're crossing everything, and it's had an incredible response, and so yeah, all we can do is hope that it's doing everything for the network that they intended, and I think it is. And like you said, the tone of the show is really unique and special, and it takes its time, and I think that's something that you don't often see in television anymore. Things are very fast paced and people's attention span is very short. But this show really takes its time and also addresses things in Canadian history that are very important to take your time going through, so that we can all feel what those stories are and have a chance to process what that is. This isn't just fiction. This is also a lived reality. And I think that's something really, really special. And I really hope it gets to continue.
Yeah, and you said it, Anna. When I'm trying to remember which episode it was, and I'm thinking that it was episode 3 and 4. That's when I started to see the reality of the Canadian history come forth. And it's a dark history that came forth. And some of those stories have come out in the media earlier this year. But to see it portrayed on screen is a whole different matter. And to see families had to face what really happened the discoveries of deep, dark secrets coming, well, from the ground up, so to speak. And for those of you who have not seen Three Pines, you'll figure it out as you watch this amazing series. And I think that really bodes well for this series, Anna, because it's not all fiction. There are real life stories from Canadian history that do come about here, and I think that is great for, well, us in America. We learn, history from others, and I think that's what really makes this series Three Pines absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not a unique to Canada history by any stretch. Every country has their dark past, and the UK is no different. And I think it's very important that they're trying to process it, and also processing it through the art that you put out. And I think it's difficult to go there, and I think there's a big resistance in going there, but I'm really, really pleased that they have.
Yes. Now, do you come from an acting family?
I do, yes. Yeah, my father was an actor. He passed away 8 years ago now. But in his lifetime, he was one of the most incredible actors that I know, and I'm not just biased.
Well, your father is Malcolm Tierney, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and for those of you who know of Malcolm Tierney, and those of you who may not know, he actually appeared in the very first Star Wars. He was in Braveheart and also the original House of Cards. And he has a great resume when it came to film. And like you said, he did pass away, 2014?
Yeah.
So what is
Yeah.
your greatest memories of your father?
My father was someone who, at like a birthday party or a garden party or something, he could stand there and he had these monologues that he would do, and he would just have everyone in fits of laughter. And he was someone who could kind of hold court in that way. And he would include everyone in the thing that he was doing. He was very generous in his art, and very, very talented and charming and funny. And he could just light up a room in that way. And that's something that I always remember, as a child and as an adult. It's something that I loved so much. And he was just such a great person to talk to about the business, and just a very well-rounded and intelligent and emotionally available person. So, yeah.
Well, with someone by the name of Malcolm Tierney, was he larger than life when he entered the room?
Yeah. Yeah, he really was. He really was. He was magical. He had a twinkle in his eyes, and yeah, just made you feel special and like you were being really listened to. And I think that's a really rare quality to find in people.
Well, I have heard that you have become a pottery master. So, how did you discover that creative art?
I discovered it shortly after filming, actually. And I think maybe the character that I was playing was somehow inspiring me to kind of just go for it. And maybe also Louise Penny, who's the author of these novels, she started writing in her late 40s and just changed track and changed course. And so I just kind of went for it, and I started, and I fell in love with pottery and with clay, and it's something that just really spoke to me, and I became very obsessive with it. And there's so many possibilities within the art form, and so I'm really excited about it. And I actually just delivered a big commission to a restaurant in Toronto, and I've just launched my website, and so you can buy little Anna Tierney originals now.
Well, I visited your website, spelljarpottery.com,
Yeah.
and I love the cute design of the belled vases. And I think my favorite's actually the candle hoppers. Love those.
Oh, thank you so
And
much.
it
Yeah,
is a beautiful website, by the way.
thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to have something extremely special, you need to go to spelljarpottery.com. This is Anna's own handiwork. of her bell vases and the candle hoppers. But I've got to ask you, Anna, do you have a dream role that you would love to play in your acting career?
Great question. I do, I now that I've been allowed to play one Canadian, I've always had a little dream or fantasy that I could one day play Joni Mitchell. I'm a big, big fan of her, and I think I could age up and age down and
I think you could pull that off. I can see even your own natural look. You can pull off portraying in a feature film biopic of Joni Mitchell. So that would actually work. I think that would work. So who knows? An Academy Award could be coming. So what is next for Anna Tierney in 2023?
What's next for me is, well, we're all crossing our fingers for season 2 of Three Pines, and I've got some writing projects that I'm focusing on. So I have a writing project with an actor friend of mine in the UK. We're developing a comedy series based on some very niche hobbyists. I won't reveal any more at this point, but that's been really fun to work on. And I started writing a novel as well. So whenever there's time, I'm going to be working on those two things in between other things. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this very quick about Three Pines. How long did it take to film the 8-episode series?
So we filmed from August to December. So it was a kind of good 3.5-month period. Yeah.
Wow, that's not bad to be filming. Of course, filming today is a lot faster than it used to be.
Yeah.
And but again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen Three Pines on Amazon Prime, you need to start binge watching right now. It is an absolute fantastic crime drama series. You're going to love every character. Every character has their own story. It could be something dark, could be something great, but you're just going to have to check it out. And again, Anna Tierney plays Clara Morrow on this amazing series. And if you want to check out Anna Tierney herself, go straight to spelljarpottery.com, and you can also find her on Instagram as well. And again, for those of you who love pottery, again, check out her bell vases and her candle hoppers. And Anna, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you, Anna. And ladies and gentlemen, stick around because I will be right back with more.